ran Rails new. So let's go over this real quick, right? I just ran Rails new and I gave it the app name. Here, it's automatically going to generate README. You know about our good friend Rake. I'm locking the Ruby version. All right, all our config RU is already built in. We should be familiar with this. Don't worry about this for right now. Gem file you're familiar with. What does this do?
Get in it.
Yeah, get in it. Get in it. It initializes the Git repository, right? So get in it. It's that's a first actually. I don't know why I have not seen that before. I'm like a nerd, you know. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get in it, but now I'm gonna get in it. Hey, it makes whatever folder you're in a Git repository for version control. Cool. So it's gonna make a folder called app, right? And what does our app have?
MVC.
Yep, it has MVC. So we have, where is it? We have controllers right here, right? We have views, and where are my models? Here it is, my models, right? So far, so good. It does all these cool bin things, right? And we'll get into that later. Config routes. This has been a little bit tricky for you. We'll try to clarify some things today, right? Puma is just a server that we're going to start. It's going to run on top of Rack. The environment file we're pretty familiar with at this point. We have development, production, and test databases. So Rails is like a full suite. It's not just Capybara, which I know you all love very, very, very much because it's so good. It's so robust and perfect. Let's see what else. What else is important, right? We have a full suite of tests. You can, in fact, make a Rails new, and then you can just throw in like that you don't want the test flag. And then immediately it does this, right? It runs bundle install. So here, I keep saying, which I now know I'm clearly getting made fun of, but Rails is a monster. Right? So look at all these gems. Right? So back when we were in mod 1, I was like, oh, we have a gem file. And it's just going to manage all of our gems, all 5 of them. And I was like, whoa. But now, this is typically what you'll see in regular apps, right? They're fairly bloated, and there's a lot of gems that come in here, which means that there's going to be a ton of auto magic happening, right? If you're ever confused as to what's going on, first let's like cd into that folder, right? A little bit of this. If you're ever confused, you can always run rails -- help, and just like that, what's this? It looks like a command line application, something you already know how to do. It's useful because now I can see it does something called generate. I have something called console, right? What does console do? Just starts that pry session for me, right? So we're gonna get out of Rake land and into Rails land, right? Its emission is free. It's almost like Disney, but not quite. Yeah, that's why I nodded.
Okay. So we were trying to use pry earlier, and we couldn't get it to work. So if we want to use pry, should we run the Rake console and then drop a pry, have a pry from there? Is that like the way to do it?
No. So what are you doing when you're trying to get into pry? Are you binding.pry?
Yeah, we're usually binding.pry in the application controller to see if our application controller methods fit.
Okay. So Rails upgraded, right? Do you remember when I told you that there was going to be more functionality to your pry, like next step, continue, and all this stuff? Yeah. So there's a new gem here called bybug, right? And that's going to be the debugger that we'll use for the pry. And so you no longer will drop binding.pry. You'll literally drop something called bybug, and I can show you. All right. So that's probably why it's not working. Anything else for off the bat? Yes.
So if we're gradually moving away from Rake, because I understand that, like, maybe this is getting ahead, but like I understand that you can generate like migrations with Rails, but then what about like the other aspects of database aspects?
Yeah.
That are normally with Rake?
Absolutely. So as of Rails 5, the newest version of Rails, which you should all be on, they have replaced the commands rake with Rails. Both will work. So if you're still used to writing rake, it will do the exact same thing. It's just that,
Rails DB.
correct. So right here, like see, you have a DB console. These are all your Rails commands. right? So you can do Rails console. These are all your rake commands. These look familiar to you at all? Yeah? You can just call Rails right on them. So there's something I want to talk to you about. It's called generators, right? Have we read or learned about generators yet? Raise your hand if you've read or learned about them.
Were they in the?
I don't know. I'm like asking. I don't know. Cool. So what a generator will do is it will generate all of these files for you, right? So let's do that. What's Rails generate? And what do we have, right? We want a model. So what's our model here? Cookie? Cookie, right? And what is the attributes of cookie? Delicious? Delicious, right? That's it. Boolean. What else? Sure. I want to stay away from the word type. Type is like an interesting flavor, right? Cool. Anything else? Size. All right. Size integer or no?
Gluten-free.
All right. So gluten-free. So if I don't specify, it'll default as a string. That's why I've only added certain ones. I'm sorry. Is that helpful? Yeah? I guess gluten-free would be Boolean, right?
Yeah.
Bool. Yeah? Cool. Let's see what this does.
Should have vegan
Hmm?
too. Should have vegan.
Add a view?
Vegan.
Oh. We can add a migration later. So here's what it does, right? It creates cookies, right? At model cookie. And it creates these tests, right? So it built these models straight up for me. What else do we need? Probably need a controller. So you want to generate a controller? Rails G, generate. Controller. For what? Cookie. We cool? Bloop. So what it's going to do is it's going to generate this controller. It's going to generate a views folder for my cookie, right? Test and a helper. So let's take a look. It's a lot of stuff that we just did. Take a look at this monster. Right? Look at this. Bloop. That's pretty big.
That's a good way to put it. Like, what is this other than like a beast or a monster? It's like such a better word, right?
I'm sorry, what?
So much, such a word.
He's just happier using that word.
Monster?
Just be great. Just being like, go after this.
Yeah, let's do it, right? So we have controllers right here, and look at that. Bloop, cookie controller, right? It's done for you. What? Money, right? Yeah, I know. Rails generate controller, cookie. Yeah, I know. I've written 0 lines of code. I've written a couple of command lines, but 0 code. Look at this. My model, cookie, application record. Look at my views, right? I have layout. Layout should look pretty familiar. Ooh, look, even the title for me. And then just like that regular old yield, right? Don't worry about this for right now. I'll get into it later. But this is the yield. Hmm?
The generate model creates a database as well, right?
Let's take a look, right? Look at this migration. Do you remember when I did Rails G model and then I added all the things for my model? Look. Wow. Wow. Does it though? So views is the only thing that doesn't actually have a generator, unfortunately.
Does it always add timestamps?
T.timestamps will be something you will get used to because you will need to know this starting next week. So don't worry about for what this is right now. But as a cursory overview, T.timestamps will give it 2 additional attributes, and that is when it was created and when it was last updated. And this is very useful to understand the progression of like all your different instances within your database. Yeah? Chris?
Can we migrate this too automatically, or is it?
No, not yet.
Can you go to the application record?
All right. Oof, thank God. I thought you were going to ask me about this because I don't really know. Yeah. But you just wanted to see it?
Look, he was inheriting from it, so I wanted to see what it meant.
Okay, cool. Yeah. If you ask me, I'm going to tell you the same thing I'm about to do. Yeah? There's another question?
No, I had the same question.
Okay, cool. All right. So I can tell it has not migrated. Why? What am I missing here? I'm missing my schema, right? You guys really like noises, huh? They like voices, right? Oh, it's my schema. Cool. So for right now, that's really about it that we can understand in terms of everything that we do know in terms of active record, the model, the controller, and the view. Any questions so far? Awesome. So if you're already on it, we can in fact do rake db migrate or Rails db migrate. It's up to you, right? So who wants rake and who wants Rails? Rails, 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 Rails. Cool, let's do it. And so, bam, it migrated. Yeah?
You still need to do the migrate Sinatra, whatever, I'm assuming you don't have to do the ENV development.
No, that's a Sinatra thing, right? And that's why we're done. Gone. No mas. Rails, 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 Rails. So, what now? How do we spin up this Rails server? With Rails server. Very good. So Rails S is just short. This is the last time I'll write server for you. Just so you can see it. Yeah? Cool. So what do I do now? Hmm? I need to go to localhost. Is it 9393? Yeah. Now you're on Rails. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking with butter. So back to my favorite type of development, EDD. What should we see here?
Errors.
Cookies? Z? Z? S? Z? S?
Pieces.
I don't know, let's find out. So here we have something called no route matches get to slash cookies, right? This looks very familiar. Does it not? So let's do it. Bloop. So where would I put my routes? Right? Config routes.rb. So it says that I need something like a get to something called cookies. And what happens for the get to cookies? What should it point to? To what? To what? I think this is how to write it. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've... Right? So I'm going to tell it, just like in Sinatra, the exact route, but this time I'm going to tell it to do something with my controller. And that something is going to be in my cookies controller. But what method do I want? Right? I want index. So let's check. Boop, 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 ba-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Why is Rails hanging on me?
Do you have to restart it?
Nope. Sometimes it just hangs.
You have to restart it. If you make a route, you have to restart the server.
Oh, the routes. Yeah.
So, wait, can I ask a
Anything you need, man.
So we did something where we just sort of resources and then like cookies,
Mm-hmm.
and then that just we didn't write the specific ones. Is that better or worse thing to
Do what now?
do than writing out paths, like just straight resources?
I'll explain. Right now I'm hard coding some things I shouldn't be. So when you make your controller, in the generator, it should be plural. Cool. So it says something called action index could not be found in the cookies controller. So far, so good. Did you follow me in terms of like, all I did was make the route, tell it to go to a controller, and tell it to go to a method right here. All I did was, bloop, was when you get to cookies, slash cookies, I want to go to the cookies controller, and I want to get to a method called index. Yes? I'm lazy. Unless I have to interpolate, I use single quotes.
Okay, but it won't, it's not like
Single or double will not matter.
Okay.
String, string. Okay, cool. So, it says I have to have some sort of action index. Cool, let me do that. Bloop. So what's the method name?
Def index.
Cool. And what do I do here?
Oh, nothing?
Maybe
put cookies in there.
Hmm?
Yeah, at cookies equal cookie.all.
At cookies equals cookie.all, right? Because I'm gonna need all of these cookies, right? Give me them cookies. So, what else? What happens now? That EDD, you know what I'm saying?
Auto manager.
Should we throw this on?
All right, so all I did was I actually made this method, and it says missing a template for this request, right? Request format text.html, and this is just a wild, long thing. What does this really mean, though? If you're loading in the web browser, we assume that you're expecting to render a template. How do I render a template here? Render, what do I want to render? Index or cookie slash index?
index.
Why?
Because
Because you're opening
cookies controller knows to go to cookies folder automatically.
Who thinks it's render index? Who thinks it's render cookies index? Okay, just 3 people voted, but that's okay. Let's try index, yeah? Let's just try index. Huh, interesting. Missing the template, right? Missing template cookies index, right? Where did I search for it? Within cookies, apps, views. So, let me do that. I need to make a new file called what? .erb. So some of you have questions about this. This was the old format where we would let other people know that, hey, I'm going to be writing HTML, but ultimately I'm going to be embedding some Ruby into it. So it let other developers know that this was basically written in HTML, but ultimately I'm going to be able to have the ability to embed Ruby. So I made it an ERB file because that's what Rails is going to be looking for. The new convention for Rails 5 and moving forward as a Rails developer is the HTML is sort of optional. We understand at this point the .erb is going to be Ruby interpolated into HTML. Does that make sense? So both will work, but this is sort of the better answer, yeah? Cool. And what do we want to put in here? H1, like cookies index. Right? Gangsta. Cool. Let's try it. What's happening? Apps, views. I'm looking for something called index. Where should I be looking, though? Right? Bloop, bloop, bloop. Z? Z? Sorry, I got too gangster too early. It's just cookie? Yeah? Like this? Oh yeah, I named it cookie. God, this is what happens when you get too gangster. Too gangsta.
It should be cookies though, right?
Yeah. So I messed it up in the generator. I done messed up. But here's how you know it'll work, right? I'm going to cookie index. It almost doesn't matter what I name it. I'm pointing it into this view in a folder called cookie.
So if you had done it properly,
It would have been cookies.
it would have worked with just index.
Yes.
He's seriously talking about not having cookies slash index.
So let's do that, yeah? A little bit of this. Bloop, bloop, bloop. A little bit of that. All right, so we know this works, right? Cool. Cool, let's do it. Let's hit that refresh. Oh, look at that. It works, right? Just so you could see it. Ready? Listen for that. Did you hear that? No? Like, I'm just making sure I'm refreshing for you to prove that it's working. So this would happen, right? When I did the generator, I did cookie instead of cookies, and it made the folder cookie, which did not auto-magically line up with the cookies controller. So therefore, I had to hard code cookie into the index here. So what I did was, Daniel, is I actually just renamed it cookies, which is proper, and see how it'll take like this.
Well, here's my question.
Yeah.
Why the lab I did said you don't need the render if you're not changing the pattern.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, you probably don't even need this because Ruby will automatically look for the index. Yeah, this is always a confusing part. I'll let you get the what's out. Yeah, go ahead. Come on. Keep them coming. What? Right? So, whenever you're ready. Cool. So, to summarize exactly what happened, in my routes, in the resource of get cookies, right, which is here, right, this matches this, right? I'm going to tell it to go to the cookies controller and look for a method called index. Because CRUD and the RESTful routes are exactly the same every single time, Rails is going to automatically look for, in the controller, a method called index. What it's doing with that method is it's going to take the data from there and it's going to automatically render index the view. Now, if there is no data to pass in, it will look for the view for index. And if it finds it, it's going to render it. The problem now becomes, in the index, what do I really need in here? Right? Yes. So, I actually need... Are my shortcuts gone? Oh no. I have to do this like a plebe. Ugh. So, what is it? Add cookies? Dot each. Do with a cookie. 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 It's my dog's name, so if I get a little bit ridiculous, you could just be like, Evans, we're just building an app, you know? Bork, bork, bork. I miss my dog. So, what does cookies have? What are those sweet, sweet traits that we put in that migration? A flavor, size, gluten-free, delicious. Here, let's just copy this so we don't forget it, right? A little bit of this action, right? Who can tell me why they don't like HTML comments?
Because they don't always get commented out.
They don't really always get commented out. Specifically, when you do this, and you're like, oh, let me go do this, this breaks. Why? Because Ruby still gets interpolated. If I want this to not come through, like, you know, some Ruby code, money, I need to comment it out. That's why it's not working. When I embed the Ruby, it's going to read exactly as Ruby. Does that work? Is that cool? Does that make more sense? Nice. So, we have a Boolean, delicious, right? We have delicioso, right? Yeah, I'm like Dora the Explorer over here. And cookie dot, what else? Actually, I'm sorry. This is the index. We just need the cookie. Dang, what can we do? Let's just put flavor, flavor, right? A little ice cream cone to seal it off. Cool? But now what we need to do? See. Money. Yeah? Yep. That is correct. That is correct. No, it's cool. I'm sorry. So, man, what is it again? What are these things?
Can we do something with paper here?
We can. It's gonna take a long time. So let's just start banging away, right? What's delicious? right? True, always. I don't even know why it's an attribute, right? Flavor. What is this? Right, that's right. The best flavor, oatmeal. Raisin with the Z. Right, what do we got? Size? 7. My God, no. We're gonna go with crackhead Cold Stone Creamery sizes, like it, love it, and gotta have it. You know what I'm saying? Dang, is it integer? Fine. For whatever reason, 7 inches, right? The average size of a cookie, right? Right? The U.S. average size of a cookie. I'm talking about cookies. Gluten-free, true. You're, Johnny, what? Why do I let you guys decide where this goes? Cool, always true. Fine, we'll put in some weird ones. You know what? What do you guys like? Chocolate chip, right? This one is huge, right? And it's also, that can't be gluten-free, right? That's weird. What else we got? Dough, right? How big is this dough cookie?
2, 1.
Okay. Everything's cool. Everything's normal in here. All right. What else? One more cookie. White chocolate chip. And how big is it? 5, right? Just so we have good seed data, and because probably kind of true, right? Cool. Yeah? So what do we need to do now that our very normal seeds have been made? Seed that database. Is it rake? You know it, because now you're on Rails, right? Oh, look at that. Did it work? Who knows? Do you remember that trick I showed you about seeding database? Right? How you put in p tags and stuff, like little puts, making them cookies. Right, but the reason we do that is because, look, it ran. Great, thanks. Did it really run? Now you have to maybe go into the Rails console. Oh, by the way, if you're lazy like me, you could just put Rails C. Cool. So now we have cookie.all. Oh, and they're there. They're right there. Especially this dough one, right? Which is dough. Money. Cool. Let's get out of here. Any questions so far? Huh?
How do you put default value on something like when you use a generate, Rails generate, can you put default value like booleans, like default value is equal to true or something?
You could possibly try to configure it. I've never had to do it since the default value is already string. Why you'd want to change that?
No, I mean like boolean, you want to set it to default true.
Like can it start as false and then always starts as false and only becomes true assuming some condition is met?
That is going to be in your validations, and when you migrate, you can have default values, right? In your migrations, you can have attribute here as a default value, right? I would put it in the migration, right? Literally an attribute here called default value, and then I put true, right? If you want to look up how that's done, the Rails documents are really good. Cool. So now we have that. Now we want to see it in the browser. How do we do that again? Shotgun. Nobody? Llamas in pajamas are coming down the stairs. Bam! Let's go here. What happened? Did I mess up code? Oh, that's right. Look at this. So now that I'm looking for an instance variable, now that I'm looking for data from my database, from the model, do you remember when I blew all your minds and we completely forgot about it? I deleted this. That's when it'll break. So even though it will render without it, you'll almost never render it without it. Does that make sense? I was just telling you where it's going to look, and how that auto magic is happening. But in the index, you'll always need everything. Yes, Chris.
Because you need activities, right?
I will need the information from the model. Yes, Chris.
Like, if you're lazy, you could probably just put instead of activities, you could put it all in the view.
If you're lazy as F, you can do that, but again, that's bad practice because you're having the view talk to the model directly.
But you still don't need to render index, right?
Hmm?
Because your depth is index.
Let's find out. Well, let's make it work first, and let's try to break it, right?
Okay.
Come on. Thank you. Thank you. Come on. Cool. Look at that. Oh man, God, that's ugly. Hold on. I can't deal with that. Let's just drop li tag. All right. A little bit of this. A little bit of this. Oh, whoa, whoa. Thank you for that. All I heard was like, no. I was like, now I get it. I'm tracking. Cool. So let's find out if in fact this render is unnecessary. And it is, right? Because remember, it's pointing the auto magic. It's already understood that the index is going to point to some view file called index.
But if I wanted to like go to another file
For some reason, if I wanted my index to render show, I can make that happen. Why you would want to do that, I have no idea. But the code will listen to you. You are the master. Cool. Yeah? Any questions on that? Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of history. I'm going to get back to the routes, and I want to talk to you about resources.
Yes.
All right, cool. I realized I did something, and that is I just made a statement. I trailed off. It's a little awkward. So, cool. Who knows this extremely cool guy? DHH. David Heinemann Hansen. I don't actually know this person.
He's a Danish
Uh-huh. He's the father of Rails. This is the person, this stud made Rails. Look at this guy. Clean face, nice eyebrows, little bit of stubble, Cupid bow lips, perfect hair, master of Rails, right? This is the guy, DHH. So if you know nothing else, DHH made Rails, right? And Rails emphasizes something called convention over configuration. Does anyone have any idea what that means? Sean?
So it's like all these things are implicit and are done through conventions. So
Mhm.
basically, like for instance, instead of having to sort of like link everything up directly, like in the say the views, like saying basically the view, the controller for cookies knows to look in the cookies folder because that's like a convention
Yes.
rather than it being hard coded.
The nice thing, absolutely, and very good points. The nice thing is that if I know that in my index I'm going to show all, right, and my index controller and my index method in my controller is always going to point to index, I can then wire it up to auto magically work every time. So just in a few lines in the terminal, I can build a fully functioning CRUD app in Rails because now I can focus on building the cool, sweet, awesome, fun features because I don't have to do the boring, thoughtless things of putting those routes in, always showing the index, always doing the show page, then doing the edit, then doing the delete. Because that I know is going to be the same every single time. I want to get all of that out of the way as quickly as possible whenever I start a new application so I can immediately start working on the fun features. Does that make sense? So this is what he says. He says, the core premise of Rails remains in many ways as controversial today as when it premiered, right? That by formalizing conventions and eliminating something called valueless choices, I can offer a full stack framework that provides great defaults for anyone who wants to create a complex application. Huh? Oh, create a complete application, sorry. And so that you can basically build these apps super fast so that you don't have to worry about the valueless choices, right? Because being able to do, oh, I'm gonna push this index, I'm gonna make this index in my controller, then I'm gonna make the view, then I'm gonna do this. That's a valueless decision every single time to kind of make that. If I can spin it all up super quick, I can then do whatever it is that I want. I can then build the custom features that I want in there. Does that make sense? Cool. So super brief history. We're on Rails 5. Yay. Rails 5 did a lot of good things for us, and it simplified a lot of things. It included something called Action Cable, so then you can now do very quickly live chat within your applications. Who has been on like a website where right on the bottom corner, it's like, hey, my name is Evans. Do you have any questions today? How can I help you? And you're like talking to somebody, right? That's through something called WebSockets. Action Cable can help you set that up very quickly. So I want to show you is, boop, boop, boop. Here are some great websites that were built in Rails. Oh man, I forgot. I'm in the full screen, right? Lame. Cool. What are some sites built with Rails? All right. Who can name a few? All right. We have Airbnb, Hulu. What else? Basecamp, which is also what DHH made. All right. We have Bleacher Report if you're into sports. Bloomberg is a Rails application if you're like really into news. Clarity is cool. Couchsurfing is similar to like Airbnb, except you like sleep on somebody's couch. You know what I mean? It is a lot cheaper. Fiverr. Know what Fiverr is? Cool. You've probably seen ads on the subway for it, right? Funny or Die is a Rails app. Let's see. This one, I don't know. Have you heard of this before? GitHub? That's a Rails app. So Rails is very much alive, building things that are popular and useful today. So if you think that like, oh, I'm learning Rails and I'll never really use it, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but it is very much a popular framework. And a lot of popular things are on it. I'm saying popular too many times, I'm sorry. Cool, yeah? All right, so let's get back to resources, right? I didn't want to show you, nope. Sorry, no more. That's done, you're done. Sorry. Boop, 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 boop. Right, here. This is how the routing goes, right? The browser sends a response, right? And it makes one of these 4 main requests, right? Put or patch is kind of the same thing. Kind of, but not really. But for our purposes, this is edit, yeah? It hits the controller. The controller may need to grab something from the model, which ultimately touches the database. Then the model passes it back to the controller, like cookies equals cookie.all. That's happening right here. And then the controller, through the instance variable of @cookies, will pass it to the view of index, and then it will render with all of the assets into that HTML template. And that is what is happening here. And that's how that's happening, right? The MVC architecture is like in a nutshell, or in like 6 lines.
Is it not just that without
Yes. Yeah?
So the router is just an extra step that talks to the client.
Yeah. I'm okay with that definition. Questions so far? Sweet. So now let's get back into routing and let's talk about resources, since that's like a huge deal, right? So we have something that's available to us based on the routes that we built, get to cookies, and it's going to point to the cookies controller with the index. So, boop, 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 boop. I think it's like Rails info routes. Oh, thank God. Saved it. Cool. So what do we have here? Something called cookies path. This is known as a helper, and I will get into this more later, right? Just remember helpers, right? It's a get to /cookies, and in the controller action, I'm saying cookies, the controller has a method called index. Any questions on that? So I can, in fact, build any route that I want, right? I can get wild if I wanted to. Let's get wild, right? let's just get wild, right? Squirrels. Who cares? And that's going to point to what? Cookies. For fun, let's do show. Just for funsies, right? If I were to refresh this, you have to like, oh no, there it is. Squirrel's path. This is just a helper. I'm going to /squirrels, and it's going to point to cookies with a Z show method. So this is going to an entirely different controller. This is custom routing right here, right? In my routes, I can point it to go to wherever it is that I want to go. But what would actually make more sense for the show? What is the RESTful route for this? All right. What is it? Cookies / what? ID? And it's going to go to cookies with the show, right? So if I refresh, I see cookies and cookie show. That's basically like the regular route, the RESTful route for that. Can I create the rest of these RESTful routes? Kind of without even thinking anymore, right? Yes. So if they're going to be the exact same every single time, like we've seen in Restular, would it make sense to create some auto magic for it? Obviously. So let's do that. Let's get rid of this. Come on. Haven't heard that in a while. Resources. And how do I do this? Has anyone seen it? Right here? Cookies? Comma? Just like this? Let's find out. Oh, look at that. All my RESTful routes. /cookies, right? /cookies new. /cookies with the ID edit. All my edit methods, cookie path. I guess cookies doesn't pluralize very well. I think I might have mentioned this to you all the way back in Mod 1. I was like, yeah, you just find pluralize. Sometimes things weird happen. Cookie. Cool. Now if I wanted to, I can rename my dog. Cookies. Nice. So, yeah, singularized just did not like it, but that's okay. But this is all my RESTful routing. So resources will build all of my RESTful routes because of that power of the convention. Does that make sense? Now, would there be a time where I wouldn't want all the RESTful routes? Let's say I just want to be able to do the show page. Maybe I want to only do the show page. Show. On my cookie path. All right? But what if I wanted show, new, and create? I just get those. All right? Did that help with resources, routing, custom routing? Did that answer your questions?
What about the post?
What?
Post. Like you post something.
This is the post.
Oh, this is the post.
Yeah. Notice how new and create are separate, right? So which one would be the post? Create would be the post, yes. Because new is going to do what for me? It's going to get requests, and what should it show me? The form, so I can take in the user input to create something. Because when I submit the form, I'm making what type of method? HTTP verb action.
That would be a post.
That would be the post. So I'm going to post it to the create.
And the post would go to the show page.
Right. So knowing what I know here, right? Let's just get grimy and do all of them, right? Right? That's just quick verification. If you wanted to, and you didn't like this, you can always do. Let's just do a new tab. CD blap 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 blap. Oops. Blap blap blap. And I think I did what, cookies? Cool. I can always do Rails, and I can always check the routes. And it will tell me right here in the terminal as like a very useful command line application, right? Mod 1 project here. Right. Do you see that the command line is not really entirely useless in your path to be a web developer? I just wanted to point that out because it's important, the skills that we teach you and how it fundamentally grows. Yes, Chris.
I'm assuming you wouldn't want to leave, like, is there an option to turn off the info around the web page so that people can just, like,
You talking about this?
no, the browser behind it, like, as far as I know, you don't always want people to be able to see, like, everything happening.
You can see this because you're on the local host.
Okay.
You will not be able to access this once this is pushed to production.
Okay.
Yeah, very smart. Cool. So, hand, yeah? No, it's fine. No, it's fine. Go ahead, please. Absolutely. That's exactly where I'm going right now. So now that I know what I'm going to be building, I should be doing what? Show. I should be doing what? New. I should be doing what? Now we're not running into that problem where I have to hack it up and be like, oh no, the new, but the show comes first, and I do this bad boy over here. Do you remember that? No? Okay. It's okay if that didn't make sense. Don't worry. But what else do I need? I need the edit and I need the delete. And then I would put what code in here? You know? What code would be the show? At cookie. Yeah? Do I need a render here? Render show? No, convention. So much faster, so much easier.
Didn't you say find route was the better way for finding though?
Yeah, I'm just trying to like speed. All right, here we go. Just for you, Seb. Just for you. This is the better way. Yeah. That's the intro to Rails. That's all I've got for you. Hopefully that clarified routing, resources, right? A little bit of the file structure, reinforced RESTful routing, the MVC architecture, and how all of the Sinatra really built you up to this. Daniel?
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask, I found something yesterday where it talked about the four-step.
Before action?
Yeah.
I will go over that in a different lecture. Cool. Are there any other questions? What are your questions?